Apple's iconic founder, Steve Jobs, never traveled to China as CEO in his lifetime, even though the country played such an important role in both manufacturing and consuming Apple products. But last week, Apple's current CEO, Tim Cook, became the first Apple chief executive to visit China on business, on a trip which saw him meet some of the country's top politicians. Vice Premier Li Keqiang told Cook that the government would strengthen intellectual property rights protection and continue to transform its economy. But he also called on Apple to consider expanding its operations in China, particularly in the underdeveloped west of the country. As a report from independent auditors slammed conditions in many of the factories that supply Apple or assemble its products, Li also called for the company to ensure that workers' rights were respected and that Chinese laws were obeyed. After a slow start, when the PC ruled in China, Apple has now become something of a cult here, and rumours of Cook's whereabouts flew around the internet. He was spotted at one of Beijing's 2 official Apple stores, and some microblog posts said he had met top executives at China's 2 telecom giants companies, that's China Telecom and China Unicom. So to find out what Chinese net users have been saying about the visit, let's cross over to our researcher Julia Liu, who's been following what's being said from the newsroom. Okay, Julia, so as we've said, Cook's visit is the first by an Apple CEO on business, at least in China. What's being said?
Well, of course, plenty of comments and interest from Apple fans, as well as some suggestions like this post from QQ.com saying, well, welcome to China, Brother Cook. I really hope you might consider my suggestion and at least add a Chinese Siri service, since now all I can do is ask the question, what's the time now, which is a bit of a waste. And this poster by Ya simply thinks this visit is just a matter of time and nobody should feel surprised, saying, in my opinion, Cook was always better than Jobs in terms of doing business and is also a better social communicator. So for him, China, such a big market obviously, is worth paying attention to. Well, in this poster's mind, his visit might be related to an ongoing trademark infringement dispute with a Chinese company over the iPad name, saying if he planned to do a market survey, he would have gone to Shanghai, since the largest flagship store is there. And if he planned to check the supply chain, then he would have gone to Guangzhou. So I think the reason he chose Beijing is because the new iPad is coming out and he needs to have clear communication with the government on the trademark case. But this poster seems a little doubtful about Vice Premier Li's meeting with Cook, and he asks, to me, Cook is only a CEO of a foreign company, so is it necessary to have such a high-level reception? Finally, this poster from Weibo.com gives a warning to Apple, and he says, well, I don't think having a meeting with the vice premier will make any big difference. Just think about the former HP CEO Carly Fiorina. When she visited China, she even had a meeting with the president. But did that convert into any concrete benefits later? I don't think so.
Okay, Julia, as we mentioned, there's still a bit of a mystery about Cook, what he actually did on that visit, certainly in terms of who he met and so on. What's being said about his schedule?
Well, I think this question is what net users discuss most. And according to the polls on several news websites, many people mentioned that trademark dispute with a company called Provio, and think Cook is coming to discuss a solution. But in fact, Provio Technology in Shenzhen has denied this and says that there's no meeting with the Apple and they'll seek a resolution through legal means. And besides this idea, though, there are some other guesses about where he will go. And the first is about the iPhone 5. And this is what the net user on SingPao.com says. I think during this visit, Cook must meet with executives of China Telecom and China Unicom, and what they'll discuss must be the new iPhone 5. Currently, iPhone only accounts for about 7% of the whole mainland market, and China Mobile has no agreement with the Apple. So I think if Cook wants to take that market, he must meet them. And this poster from iPhone.com mentions another legal case involving copyright, which Apple was involved in China, saying, although this time the trademark infringement case may not become a key issue, what about the Chinese writers who have sued Apple for infringing their copyright? I think the company needs to come up with a solution as soon as possible. After all, Apple has never shied away from defending its own intellectual property against competitors who are looking to encroach on its market share. And besides these, this poster, Hey Bai Wusheng, just thinks this visit may be trying to make up for the way Steve Jobs seemed to ignore China as CEO. To be honest, I don't think Jobs paid enough attention to China and its huge market. So this time, Cook is taking a positive initiative, and I think it will be a good thing for Apple's development. But in terms of the question whether Cook will be able to maintain the position of Apple products in many consumers' hearts, I think we still need to wait and see.
Right. Last question, Julia, related to that point. Do net users really believe this visit of Cook is a sign of change regarding Apple's attitude towards China? I mean, maybe a more positive attitude?
Oh yes, Cook himself has said that China is a staggering market with off-the-charts sales. And since the current competition in China has become more intense, many net users believe Cook, who cares more about marketing, will obviously pay more attention to China than his predecessor, like this post, which says, "The consumers are the final decision makers, and I think Cook must be clear about the current competition in China. And because besides him, other technology giants, including Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg and CEO of Nokia, Stephen Elop, have all visited China recently. I think if Cook wants to expand the market, he obviously needs to take a more positive attitude." But finally, this poster thinks there are also many problems that exist ahead if Cook does try to expand the market for Apple here. And here's what he has to say. Maybe China will become Apple's largest market in 1 or 2 years, but it will be also cause more trouble for Apple. For example, the company won't be able to use intellectual property rights in such an effective way against its competitors. And when Apple's products come into China in greater numbers, the company will face plenty of obstacles from the whole industry here, and not to mention the regulatory department. So I think Cook still has an uphill struggle ahead of him.